Don't look for me, Andrew. I need to find myself. The kids are yours now. Those were the last words Megan Collins scrawled on a note before vanishing into thin air, draining every dollar they had. She had no idea her husband was about to turn her reckless escape into the most decisive custody victory the courts had ever seen. What happened next will shatter everything you thought you knew about marriage, betrayal, and responsibility, viewers. If you came home to find a note like this, what would your first move be? Would you fight back or would you break? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories that will leave you speechless. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound when Andrew Collins stepped into his Austin home that evening. The ordinary rhythm of family life was gone. No cartoons bouncing from the living room, no small footsteps racing to the door, no familiar voice greeting him. The silence pressed down heavy, too heavy for a home that had always carried laughter. He set his briefcase aside and noticed a piece of folded paper on the counter. One glance at the handwriting was enough. Megan's hand. His wife. The woman he had built 8 years of marriage with. His pulse quickened as he opened it, expecting a grocery list or a reminder about bills. Instead, 7 lines of ink carved into his chest. Don't look for me. I need to find myself. The kids are yours now. The world tilted. The kitchen light buzzed faintly above him, but Andrew couldn't breathe. He read it again, slower, hoping meaning would change with each pass. It didn't. She was gone. He pulled out his phone and called. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. By the third attempt, he knew she had cut him off. In desperation, he opened his laptop, signing into their joint bank account. The screen confirmed his deepest fear. Empty. Every dollar withdrawn. Andrew's first instinct was anger, but upstairs, Sophie slept curled around her stuffed rabbit, and Caleb sprawled across his blanket with the innocence only a 4-year-old could hold. They were still here. They needed him. Whatever his wife had chosen, he couldn't collapse. He picked up the note and slid it into a folder. Not out of sentiment, but out of foresight. That piece of paper was no longer just words. It was evidence. It was protection. The weight of betrayal throbbed in his chest, but he poured himself a glass of water and forced his breathing steady. Tomorrow would require action. Tonight he needed to stand watch over his children. He walked upstairs once more, stood in their doorway, and studied them sleeping. He whispered to the dark room, "You'll be safe. I promise." And in that moment, something shifted inside him. The man who once lived for routine was gone. What remained was a father sharpened by urgency. Megan's departure would not define them. His unimaginable choice would, to secure his children's future, to gather every piece of truth, to prepare for a battle she could never undo. The silence in the house no longer felt empty. It felt like the beginning of war. The morning after Megan's disappearance, Andrew Collins carried himself with a quiet determination. He hadn't slept, but his children would not see that. In the kitchen, he set out bowls, poured oatmeal, and buttered toast with mechanical focus. The smell of coffee drifted through the room. Sophie padded in first, her hair tangled from sleep. Caleb followed, dragging his blanket, eyes half closed. Andrew greeted them with steady warmth, placing plates before them. "Daddy, where's Mommy?" Sophie asked, voice still fragile from the night. Andrew set the juice down, his expression gentle but guarded. "She's away on an official trip," he said. "But Daddy's here." They accepted it, as children do when their world still feels safe. After breakfast, he bathed them, buttoned Caleb's shirt, tied Sophie's ribbon, and walked them out to the car. The drive to school felt longer than usual, but he listened as they talked about classmates and story time, keeping their innocence intact. After dropping them in school, Andrew sat in the car for a long moment. The silence pressed in, but he did not allow grief to claim him. He reached for the folder on the passenger seat, the letter and the bank statement, and started the engine. His destination was no longer work. It was the courthouse. At the attorney's office, he laid the documents on the desk. His lawyer studied them in silence, then leaned back, her tone decisive. This is abandonment. She left the children. She drained the account. We'll petition immediately for temporary custody. Hours later, Andrew stood in family court. The room was quiet, the air sterile, but the moment carried the weight of lives. His lawyer presented the note. She presented the empty bank records. She presented the timeline of disappearance. The judge examined the papers, his expression unreadable, then finally spoke. Temporary custody is granted to Mr. Collins. Grounds of abandonment are established. The sound of the gavel was not relief, but responsibility. Andrew left the courthouse holding the official order, feeling the gravity of it in his hands. Sophie and Caleb were now his, legally and securely. That evening, once the children were asleep, he sat at the kitchen table. The note lay before him, beside the custody order, beside the drained account statement. Megan's absence was no longer only betrayal. It was a pattern, a choice, a danger to his children's stability. He picked up the phone and called a licensed private investigator. When the man answered, Andrew's voice was calm but unshakable. I need to know where Mai is. I need proof of everything she's doing. I can't leave room for her to undo this. He sent him his name and pictures. The investigator agreed. The search began. For Andrew, it was not about chasing a runaway wife. It was about building a wall of truth so strong that no excuse, no sudden reappearance, could ever threaten his children again. The custody order gave Andrew Collins the first measure of security, but responsibility pressed heavier than ever. He couldn't be in two places at once. Managing work and parenting two small children alone was impossible without help. Within a week, he hired a nanny, a calm, dependable woman who arrived each morning, prepared meals, and kept Sophie and Caleb's routines steady. With that support in place, Andrew could work, but more importantly, he could begin preparing for what would come next. 3 weeks later, the private investigator report arrived. A thick, bound folder was placed on Andrew's kitchen table after the children were asleep. He opened it slowly, each page striking with the precision of a hammer. The first section documented the timeline of Megan's disappearance, the date she left, the withdrawal of every dollar from their joint account, and her immediate relocation. The second section held photographs. Megan in Miami, standing beside a man at a rooftop bar. Megan smiling on a balcony overlooking the ocean. Megan weighed down with shopping bags in front of a luxury boutique. Every image stamped with date, time, and location. The third section compiled receipts and surveillance records, hotel check-ins paid in cash, restaurant bills, club entries. Andrew read the file cover to cover, his face calm, but his stomach knotted. He wasn't shocked. The note she had left was proof enough of her intent. But now he had something stronger. He had evidence no courtroom could ignore. He closed the folder, placed it beside the custody order, and locked both away. The house was quiet, the nanny already gone home for the night, his children sleeping upstairs. For the first time in weeks, Andrew exhaled fully. Megan had chosen her path, and he was choosing his, to be the parent who stayed, the parent who protected, the parent who would not allow abandonment to be rewritten as absence or excuse. Megan's absence stretched past 4 weeks. By then, Andrew Collins had built a fragile but steady rhythm for his children. The nanny kept Sophie and Caleb's mornings calm. Andrew managed their school runs, and evenings were filled with homework, dinner, and bedtime stories. Life was patched together, but it was holding. He had spoken to Megan's parents in the first days after she left. They had been stunned, apologetic, and powerless. They hadn't heard from her either. For weeks they hoped she would call. She never did. The temporary custody order gave Andrew security, but temporary was not enough. One night after the children were asleep, he sat at the dining table, the note she left spread before him. The words were undeniable. Don't look for me. The kids are yours now. Next to it lay the investigator's file, photographs, receipts, timelines. Together, they told a story no one could erase. The next morning, he returned to his attorney's office. This time, there was no hesitation. He authorized the petition for divorce. The grounds were clear: abandonment, financial misconduct, and desertion of the children. The lawyer promised the paperwork would be filed with the court immediately, and that stamped copies for service would be available within days. Andrew left the office with a quiet sense of resolve. It wasn't anger driving him now. It was clarity. He could no longer live suspended in the space Megan had left behind. His children needed finality, and so did he. When the documents were ready, he didn't stop there. He moved through the bedroom they had once shared, opening the closet doors and drawers. He folded Megan's clothes into boxes, added her shoes, her jewelry box, the small things that had once marked her presence in the house. Piece by piece, he packed away what was no longer his responsibility. On a Saturday morning, he loaded the boxes carefully into the trunk of his car. Sophie and Caleb were with the nanny, their day uninterrupted, while Andrew drove across town. Megan's parents answered the door with weary eyes. They had not seen their daughter in months, but they already knew this visit was not reconciliation. "These are hers," Andrew said simply, lifting each box onto the porch. Then he handed over a sealed envelope containing the divorce petition. "And this is for her." Her father accepted the boxes silently. Her mother's lips pressed thin, but she said nothing. They understood. Andrew wasn't punishing Megan. He was closing the chapter she had written herself. Driving away, the trunk now empty, Andrew felt a weight lift. The house he returned to was still full of responsibility, but it was lighter without the shadow of her belongings lingering in closets. For the first time, the end of the marriage wasn't just a possibility. It was on paper, signed, filed, and set in motion. Winter's chill had settled across Austin by the time Megan returned. The money she once flaunted online was gone, spent in a handful of reckless months. The man who promised her freedom had disappeared with it, leaving her to buy a bus ticket home. As she walked down the familiar street, the Collins house glowed softly under the porch light. For a fleeting second, she believed she could walk back inside as if nothing had happened. She pulled her key from her purse, slid it into the lock, and twisted. The metal refused to turn. She tried again, harder, her breath quickening. The locks had been changed. Her fists pounded against the door. "Andrew! Caleb! Open up!" Her voice cracked into the still night. Inside there was only silence. No footsteps, no voices, no sign that anyone was home. She pulled out her phone, desperate, but her calls failed before they even connected. Andrew had blocked her long ago. Megan sank onto the porch steps, trembling. She had imagined this moment differently. Andrew breaking down, the children running into her arms, the house welcoming her back. Instead, she sat outside a door that no longer opened for her. Finally, she rose and turned toward the only place left: her parents' house. When she arrived, the porch light was dark. No cars in the drive. She rang the bell, knocked, and waited, but no one came. The windows reflected her own anxious face back at her. Her parents weren't home. Exhausted, she curled onto the porch bench, clutching her coat around her. Hours passed. When headlights finally cut across the driveway, Megan stood quickly, brushing hair from her face, trying to compose herself. Her father stepped out of the car, his eyes heavy with something colder than shock. Disappointment. Her mother followed, lips pressed tight. They did not embrace her. They did not even ask if she was well. Without a word, her father unlocked the door, went inside, and returned with a manila envelope. He placed it firmly in her hands. "This came weeks ago," he said. Her fingers tore it open, and her heart dropped. Inside were copies of the divorce petition, the custody order, and her own note. "Don't look for me. The kids are yours now." The handwriting was unmistakable. The words were hers, preserved as evidence. Her knees buckled. This, this isn't fair. I wasn't abandoning them. I was overwhelmed. I just needed to find myself. Her mother's reply cut through the night like ice. You didn't lose yourself, Megan. You lost your family, and Andrew protected them from you. Megan clutched the papers to her chest, but there was nothing left to hold on to. The door that had once been hers was not just locked. It was gone. Megan staggered off her parents' porch with the manila envelope clutched in her arms. The divorce filings, the custody order, and her own note stared back at her like an accusation carved in stone. Her parents' words still echoed in her ears, sharper than any blade. You left them. Andrew didn't. Tears burned her eyes, but anger quickly rose to drown them. She straightened, lifted her chin, and hissed into the cold air. I'll fight this. I'll get my family back. No court will keep my children from me. And so she did. Within weeks, Megan filed her own petition, claiming her disappearance was not abandonment, but the result of depression. She painted herself as a mother who had been overwhelmed, a woman who had left only to seek help, and had now returned stronger, ready to resume her role. The hearing was set for a Tuesday morning. Andrew arrived in a pressed suit, calm and silent, his lawyer carrying the file that had already been built piece by piece, the handwritten note, the bank withdrawal records, the private investigator's report, and the photographs that showed Megan living recklessly across state lines while her children remained at home. Megan sat across the aisle, her hands trembling on the table. Her attorney spoke first, a polished voice weaving the narrative of a woman misunderstood. She was struggling. She needed treatment. She never intended to abandon her children. She has returned now, healthier, ready to be their mother again. But the story unraveled the moment Andrew's lawyer opened the file. First came the note, projected clearly before the judge. Don't look for me. The kids are yours now. Not the words of a mother seeking help, but of a woman walking away. Then the bank records. The complete withdrawal of their savings the very day she vanished. Finally, the investigators' photographs and receipts. Megan smiling poolside in Miami, twirling in boutiques, dining in luxury restaurants, traveling with a companion. All dated, all stamped, all undeniable. This is not treatment, Andrew's lawyer said firmly. This is not depression, this is abandonment financed by the very money she stole from her family. The courtroom was silent as the judge read through the evidence. Megan tried to speak, her voice breaking as she insisted she had been in pain and confused, drawing, but the words collapsed under the weight of proof. When the ruling came, it was steady, final. Full custody remains with Andrew Collins. The mother's petition is denied. The gavel struck once. Megan covered her face with her hands, her sobs echoing in the chamber. Andrew did not glance at her. He gathered the custody order, thanked his lawyer quietly, and walked out into the bright Texas sun. If you were in Andrew's place, what would you have done? Would you fight the same way or choose another path? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.